Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So, if you are here for the University of Maryland, Baltimore County UMBC Pause and Pivot webinar series for impacted federal workers, you are in the right place. Again, if you are here for the UMBC or University of Maryland, Baltimore County Pause and Pivot webinar series for impacted federal workers and government contractors, you are in the right place. So, fortunately, all of you showed up on time today, so we're not going to spend too much time waiting. We're going to get right into it. So today's session, ATS Demystified, how to get your resume past AI and stand out. Today's presenter is me. I'm Rex Jarrett. I'm the Director of Professional Programs here at UMBC, and I'm happy to have you all here with us this afternoon. Nice little headshot of me, let you know I am who I say I am. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Pause and Pivot webinar series, we'll get into a little bit more, but it is essentially an effort or a commitment from UMBC to our Maryland neighbors and our fellow DMV residents to support them during some difficult transitional periods, especially for those in the federal government. But today is not our only session. So while we are here today for ATS Demystified, we have Pause and Pivot webinars every week. So next week, please join us again for leveraging your experience in careers in health IT and informatics. So if you're working in the health industry, it'll be a great session for you. The week after that, the hidden job market, how to uncover opportunities no one's posting. Won't lie, I've attended all these sessions so far, but that one particularly piques my interest, and I'm really looking forward to figuring out or hearing about the hidden job market. And then the week right after that, it's building resilience, remaining grounded in times of change. So we have all of these resources, and I'm sure that everyone else in the state or everyone else in the area is looking to support impacted federal workers at this time. But those resources are great and needed, but it's easy to forget that the people who are impacted are people first. You can't use the resources if you're not okay with yourself first. If you haven't done the work or had an opportunity to do the work to take care of yourself. So I'm excited for all of our sessions, but I'm really looking forward to the things taking place this month. And I hope that many of you will join us in our future sessions. Again, every Wednesday starting at 12 noon. So why are we here? Pause and Pivot. Pause is a play on the name of our golden retriever mascot, Grit, and Pivot. We're talking about taking a pause with everything going on, using that opportunity to kind of resettle yourself and pivot into what is next. So Pause and Pivot is UMBC's commitment to supporting federal workers and contractors. And the purpose of this webinar series is to empower job seekers or empower people who are currently in a professional or career transitional period to figure out what to do next. And this week's session is on how to beat automated hiring systems and do so confidently. Maryland has experienced a loss of 2,600 federal workers in April of 2025, following a reduction of 2,700 positions in the month of March previously. These cuts have tempered the state's overall job growth, and highlighting the need for effective job searching strategies in this current climate is pretty important. So that's why I'm really happy to be able to do today's session for you all. But, that's enough of the prequel. Let's get into it. What is ATS? ATS is an applicant tracking system. It's a software that is used by 98% of Fortune 500 companies, 70% of large companies, and 25 to 35% of small to mid-sized businesses, according to Fortune's Business Insight report. So that's what ATS is. It's the applicant tracking system that organizations or companies use to organize and manage resumes that they receive for job postings. It automates filtering, sorting, and ranking of applicants. According to the same Fortune Business Insight report, globally, ATS software is valued at over $16 billion and is projected to nearly double in that evaluation by 2032. So ATSs are no longer optional. They are an integral part of the way that businesses work in today's world. And remember, these numbers are from 2024. So 25 to 35% is likely much higher for those small and mid-sized businesses. So even for you, though, for those of you thinking, hey, I'm not applying to a job at Amazon, I'm not applying to a job at Google, even those smaller organizations that are in your immediate community are starting to turn to this software. And as we've seen with the advent of AI, is we all maybe have known about ChatGPT a year or 2 years ago, but now it's an integral part of all types of work that you're doing. And I think like ATS is going to follow in that same kind of trajectory. So continuing in that, what is ATS? Here we have a quote from one of the ATS software offers, Matcher, Lever, Greenhouse, ICMS, Paycor, People, Salesforce. All of these are ATS systems that sell their software, sell their services to organizations looking to fill roles or recruit talent. But this particular posting is from Matcher. And let's go ahead and read this quote together. You can choose which elements you want your ATS to scan for, including education level and specific skills that suit an individual for the position. Or you can manually apply filters to the applications based on which skills are most important to you. From here, the ATS, the application tracking system, can categorize your pool based on job description you've laid out and identify the top candidates with the right skills and education for the job. So that's what a software merchant of ATS is highlighting. It's basically saying this is what we think the most important or the key features of our software are. Notice they're not talking about removing people from their pipeline. They're talking about organizing them based on key components that are important to the person who's hiring or looking to fill that role. So how does ATS work? We've talked about the key components that software merchants for ATS are hyping up in their pitch sales. But how does it particularly work? Well, it's assigning a score and ranking your resume. It's including knockout questions. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on. It's parsing your resume using NLPs. What's an NLP? Natural language processing. Now, I did that on purpose. A lot of you are federal workers, your experience is in the federal government, and you guys love acronyms. You're now in the private sector, and acronyms that may have meant something to everyone you've worked with over the last 10, 20 years may mean nothing to those of us in the private sector. And just as some of you may be confused on what an NLP is, I want you to keep that in mind when you're going through your own resumes and incorporating those acronyms. It may mean something to you and those in your industry or in your particular branch of the federal government, but may not mean much to those outside of it. So it's just a good practice to keep there. It organizes key sections: contact info, summary, work experience, education, skills, and it scores your resumes by matching it to the job description. So it's highlighting particular points or taking key components out of your resume and then scoring them and ranking that score against other resumes and how well they match the job description. Most ATS systems, especially mainstream ones like Matcher, Greenhouse, and Lever, do not auto-reject resumes. Why? We saw that 98% of Fortune 500 companies are using these ATS systems. A lot of these organizations are very large. They may be taking resumes or job applications for a particular role this week, but it doesn't mean that they won't have another role further down the line. So they're not necessarily looking to get people out of the pipeline. They're looking to find people and rank people who are most qualified for a particular position. So a lot of folks who are using the ATS systems, that's a little weird on it. A lot of folks using the ATS are not asking it to remove candidates. It's asking them to rank them. And then especially if they've got qualified candidates who may not have made this round, they keep those applications for other job opportunities. Kind of keep that in mind, because I think a lot of folks envision what these automatic systems are like a terminator, a sentinel that's blocking you between your future opportunities. And that's not necessarily how they're being used, especially with these larger organizations. So we talked about how the ATS can remove candidates, or how it does filter them out from the pipeline. And that is usually typically done by these knockout questions. Knockout questions are questions around things like work authorization, experience level, and your willingness to relocate for a job. So essentially, are you allowed to legally work in the United States? Do you have 5 years of people leadership experience? Are you willing to relocate for this job? Because remember, the ATS is pulling out particular parts of your resume, some of them of your address. If they're highlighting that you are in a city that is not within, a commutable distance of this job, not answering yes, that relocation question may remove you or filter you out for that job opportunity. And while that might be the case and may be a little bit disappointing, I want to emphasize here that as bad as things are getting and folks, are looking for jobs and opportunities to keep a roof over their head and put food on their tables, we want to make sure that our moral integrity remains. Lying can get you flagged. Yes, these knockout questions may get you removed from the process, But there's no point in getting a job that you were not legally allowed to hold. An employer spends money and resources to bring you into that role and then finds out that they cannot hire you. That's going to get you blackballed. And that's not worth it because then you're barred from any future opportunities for landing a job with that organization. And as things go on, you might develop more skills, there might be more opportunities with better pay that you're interested in the future. And because of the decision that you make at one time out of desperation, you're barred from them. So just keep that in mind that there are knockout questions. They're legitimate questions that typically will determine whether or not you can do a role legally or effectively, and make sure to answer them to the best of your ability truthfully. So let's talk about a few ATS myths and facts. Some myths here. ATS rejects resumes. While they can, we talked about knockout questions, typically the way the organizations are utilizing ATS is to organize and rank resumes because that gives their recruiters lists that they can use or buckets they can use of qualified candidates that can either fill the position they need filled today or fill the position they may need for tomorrow. Another myth, keywords alone work. Now, I'm going to talk about some stuff that might make some of your hearts drop here, but I'm sure some of you have been told, hey, you see a job posting, copy the job posting, paste it at the bottom of your resume, change the text color to white and make it the smallest possible text size you can. And boom, the ATS is going to pick up all the keywords from the job posting and you're going to move to the next round. Okay, that's true, but it's also true that context matters. The system is going to pull in those keywords, but it's also going to contextualize it within the sentence that it was included in. So if you've got the keywords for collaboration, and rather than a coherent sentence that says, I was a key collaborator with internal and external stakeholders to accomplish X outcome working on X project, and rather it says, collaborate, comma, facilitate, comma, people management, comma, fiduciary responsibilities, comma. That context is not there. And your recruiter is going to know that. Why? Because we'll talk about it a little bit more. On the other end of the ATS system, everything on your resume is converted to the same font, the same color, and the same size. So if you threw the entire job description at the bottom of your resume in size one font in white, when it makes it to the other end of the ATS system, the recruiter is going to see not only your entire resume, they're going to see 2 pages of the job that they posted. And again, lining yourself up to quickly be removed from the process and blackballed from future opportunities. Another myth here, fancy designs help. A lot of you, again, have been in your roles or working in the federal government for decades. And, you're under the impression that, okay, I need to get out there and get a nice looking resume that captures everything that I've done, is going to be eye grabbing and get recruiters to want to talk to me. That is absolutely true for when you are finding yourselves at these federal job fairs or these impacted federal worker job fairs or these county job fairs. Yes, have a beautiful resume that's going to have someone pay attention to what it is that you offer and want to have a longer conversation with you about the things that you can contribute to their organization. But when it comes to the ATS, these application tracking systems, all of that formatting, all of the columns, all of the infographics, all of the images, those things confuse the systems. And simple formatting is best to make sure the narration that you want from your resume is captured and translated into the back end of the ATS. Next myth, only big companies use ATS. We've talked about this. Small ones do too. Yes, there's not much growth at 98% with the Fortune 500. So almost effectively every single Fortune 500 company is using ATS. If not in 2024, assuredly is probably using it now. And 70% of large organizations are doing it. And about a quarter of the small to middle-sized businesses reported using them in 2024. A year later, again, we've seen how much things have changed, the advent of AI. That quarter number is probably no longer accurate. And we're probably looking at anywhere from 50 to 60% of these smaller organizations also using the system. So you've got to make sure that your resume, when meeting with folks in person, is tailored for that interaction. But you also need to have an iteration of your resume that's prepared to interact with the ATS and make sure that it can be properly captured, translated, and then presented to the recruiter. So what do recruiters actually see? We've talked about it. ATS strips all formatting. So if you take that job posting and put it in the bottom of your resume, it's going to look crazy when your actual resume is put in front of the recruiter and then 2 pages of the job posting that they posted is found there. Recruiters see the raw text. So you cannot randomly post the keywords that you think are going to get you the job throughout your resume. They're going to find it. Recruiters probably spend 7 to 20 seconds per resume looking at what's on the back end. And that's according to the Fortune Business Review as well as Business Insider. Good content beats design in that case. The AI is not looking for your aesthetic. It's not looking for your infographics. It's not looking for your nice graphs and charts. It's looking for the hard skills in your resume that align with the job posting so that they know that you can come into that position and do it well. On top of that, you also want to make sure that you're aligning your resume for commonly used fonts. Times New Roman, Arial, and Calibri are the 3 most common formatting fonts that you're going to find in the ATS, along with the translation the ATS is doing for the potential recruiter. Now, ATS, application tracking systems, they exist. Not all of them have AI, right? AI is being integrated into everything these days, but a lot of these ATS systems do not yet have AI incorporated. As of the 2024 study, it was 40% of companies are using application tracking systems that incorporate AI into what it does. And for those particular iterations of ATS, what the AI does is it builds top performer profiles. So it looks at all of the people who work at an organization who are finding success in the work that they do. And then it builds a profile around those people about what they have in common. And then it also builds a profile of the people who are applying these jobs and compares them. So the recruiter knows, hey, these people match the profiles of folks who are already successful at your organization. It's probably a good idea to speak to them. So the AI is building profiles, comparing profiles, and reducing the amount of time recruiters need to spend on looking at resumes, because they're saying not only does this resume contain the key experiences and professional journey that we're looking for, it also aligns with the people that we already have in our organization that are successful. So key features of ATS and what recruiters are looking for. We've talked about it, relevant keywords. We're looking for job titles and experience, certifications and tools, roles that are consistent throughout your experience, and a readable layout. Now, something that I really want to take some time with here is relevant keywords. We'll talk about it a little bit more in regards to a particular strategy that you can use, but you want to make sure as you talk about the keywords match up with the work that you've done in your professional experience and that your job titles align with the role. So, for example, I'll use myself. I was at a private institution, very well known, Ivy League in the news almost every day now. And there I was a customer success manager. We're a private institution and our customers were students. So the customers that I was managing the success of were students. But when I was looking for other opportunities, state institutions such as UMBC do not consider their students customers. They're students. So my same role, customer success manager, appears as a student success manager here. So those are things that you want to make sure that you're being privy to, that you're being wise about. My job, GS13 financial analyst. What does that mean? What is a synonym for that in the private sector? So that's what we mean by job titles and experience. You want to make sure that the work that you're doing, because we're not making fabrications here. We're not making up job titles. We're not making up job experiences. We're talking about things that we've actually done and making sure we're talking about it in a way that is relevant to the organization that we're hoping to land an opportunity with. Certifications and tools. Again, we'll dive a little bit more into techniques and strategies there, but there is a tool out there, right, that lets you know where people work, what they do for their work, and what certifications and tools they're using for their jobs. That tool is called LinkedIn. Please use it. If there's a job that you're interested in, do some sleuthing. Figure out who works at that organization. What titles do they have? If they possess the role that you have, or you'll be working with your role. What are some key competencies and certifications and tools that they have? And then you can use AI for this. You can do that for multiple people in that organization, ask for a summary of it, and then see how that summary matches up with your own professional experience. And then prioritize and highlight the experiences and certifications that you have that align with their own. Again, we are not fabricating things. We are highlighting the work that we have done and aligning it with the job that we're looking for. So these are some key features that we can see, things that recruiters can see, and strategies that we can utilize around that. Moving on to common mistakes that are made. Using headers and footers, images, infographics, acronyms, and submitting incompatible PDFs. So things that folks are doing wrong. Again, we were talking about those beautiful aesthetic resumes that you might feel compelled that you need to get. Yes, for the job fairs, but for the ATS, those headers and footers are going to get aligned any which way within your resume, and it could impact the narration or the storytelling that your resume is doing. So what you want to do is avoid those headers and footers, and instead, in plain text, list your job titles, list your experiences, so that when the ATS is pulling them in, it can simply translate it and present it for the recruiter. Images and graphics, we want to avoid those. AI is smart. The ATS systems are smart. They're not that smart. They're not smart enough yet. There will come a time where they're able to process those images, translate them and interpret them properly and present them to the recruiters who need them. We're not there yet. So including these images and graphics outside of a real world or face-to-face job fair is detrimental to your opportunities or your chances. And only acronyms. We talked about this with the natural learning processing, or the NLP acronym that I used early on. A lot of you got years and years of experience in the federal government. You're transitioning into the private sector. Please take the time to spell out your acronyms. Think of it like your college papers, that you wrote back in the day. The first time you say FBI, you need to say Federal Bureau of Investigations. Then you have FBI in parentheses, and then from there on out, you can use the acronym. You should take the same approach to the acronyms that you used in your federal work, because these private sector folks want to hire you, but they want to know what your experiences are and how they align with the job that they need fulfilled. And then suitable or you submitting incompatible PDF files. As a millennial, I think I have the advantage of kind of growing up integrated into technology. Spent a lot of time, working with systems and understanding how they work. So for those of you who may spend maybe, the last time you applied to a job was in the early 2000s or the 90s or the 80s. When you're applying to these jobs online, you're going to see during the upload, it's going to have dot and 3 letters, dot dox, dot pdf, dot jpg. Please make sure that your resume is matching the compatible format, because what they're telling you is that our ATS, our application tracking system, needs these types of files, or what it feeds back does might be blank or it might be white. So it's very important to make sure you have the compatible formats for submitting. What I would suggest to folks is keep your resume in a Word document, one that you can easily manipulate and change. Then you can save it as a PDF for when you want it locked in a particular way, and you can submit it. But keep that Word iteration of your resume that is easily changeable, that you can submit to these ATSs, and save it as ATS friendly. You can have your aesthetic resume that's beautiful, it's pretty, it's got the colors, it's got the images that you're going to hand over to recruiters in person. But please, 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 on your actual computer, keep a copy of your resume that is ATS friendly, that is going to be the plain word, the plain text, that's breaking down your experiences, and it's easy for the system to understand. So resume formatting that works. We've talked about it, using standard section titles, using plain language text. Reverse chronological order is a fancy way of saying list your most recent experience first. Detail how in your most recent role you were accomplishing or doing the activities or the responsibilities that are needed for the role that you're interested in. And something that I've harped on multiple times during the session: avoid tables and columns. The system is not smart enough for that yet. And use docs or a docs or a PDF unless otherwise stated. Just keeping that top of mind. Upload the type of document that they're asking you for. Now, a lot of you may have been impacted by all the changes going on at the federal level months ago, and you may have been applying for hundreds of jobs in that time. What I'm going to say is you've tried that. And if you're here today, it likely means that it didn't work or it hasn't worked yet. I want you to give yourself grace. You've done the casting your net as far and wide as possible, try and lock in a job. What I want you to try moving forward after today is being intentional with the jobs you're applying to. Instead of applying to hundreds of jobs a week or auto applying to hundreds of jobs a week or 10 jobs a day, find 3 to 5 jobs a week. 3 to 5 jobs. Be really intentional about them. Know that these are jobs that you would want for yourself. Analyze those jobs. Take the time to research those organizations on LinkedIn. Research the people who work in those organizations on LinkedIn. Research the skills and the certifications they have and make sure they align with what you have on your resume and the experiences that you have. Do that intentional sleuthing. Do that intentional work and do it for fewer jobs. Tailor your resume to highlight or prioritize the key components, the keywords in that job description. So if on your resume, typically it says, I did budget management, I did managerial duties, but the job is highlighting, upskilling or training individual contributors. Rather than that being bullet number 10 on your resume, move it to bullet number 1 or bullet number 2. Prioritize the things in the job posting that you have done to the top of your resume or the top of that particular experience. Again, we're not creating fabrications. We're prioritizing and highlighting our actual professional experiences and make sure that the use of your keywords are natural and in content. Again, the ATS is going to pull out those keywords and then summarize them within the content they've been used. So you want to make sure that you're using them naturally. We don't want to just say, I am a collaborative collaborator who collaborates with collaborators. What does that mean to anybody? Again, we want to make sure that we're using our language effectively. I'm a collaborator with internal, external stakeholders to complete XY project and got XY outcomes. We always want to talk about the outcomes of the things that we're doing and then make sure we're mirroring job titles where possible. We're not creating new jobs. We're not creating fabrications. The AI will do that if you let them. Don't let ChatGPT create a new version of you. We are simply using synonyms of the work and the experiences that we have to make sure that we are properly aligned with the jobs that we want. So the keyword strategy, we promised to touch more on this earlier on. What is the keyword strategy? It is pulling keywords from the job titles, the must-have skills in the job posting, the required tools and technologies and the certifications, and then making sure that they align with what you have. And what that means is, or the strategy entails is, taking not only the job that one particular job posting, remember, it's taking the 3 to 5 jobs that you're highly interested in, maybe asking the AI to summarize the job titles, summarize the must-have skills and the required tools, and then going to those organizations, finding the people who have those jobs, have those skills, summarizing them, maybe ordering them in the list of importance, and then doing the same for your resume so that your score is higher and it's reflecting the keywords, the key strategies or skills that you have that pertain to that particular opportunity. And then, just being strategic, multiple versions of a job title. You're a sales development representative, SDR, or you're a sales coach, or you're a sales manager. Just making sure that all the ways that a particular keyword shows up in a particular industry, you're reflecting it in your professional experience where it applies. So we've talked a lot about what to do and what not to do. Let's give some examples of what that looks like. So here's a nice, pretty resume from Joe Biden, right? Federal resumes tend to look a lot different. You guys got really long paragraphs, multiple pages, depending on how long you've been in the federal government, 10, 20 pages of paragraphs of the work that you've done with a few keywords and some formatting. But let's talk about, maybe you've spent the money to have somebody aesthetically review your resume. Here's a iteration of where that would not be effective for an ATS system. The images, the columns, the graphics of him being 95% proficient in web design, 90% in SEO, and 80% proficient in data analysis. Those things, when translated or stripped down to their bare bones by the ATS, might wind up anywhere in his resume. They might get thrown into the middle of his education or halfway through a sentence in his experience or right in the middle of his about me. And then when it gets in front of a recruiter, it's just a word salad that doesn't make sense. So we want to, while these are pretty and it's absolutely fine to hand these out at a recruitment or a job fair, for an ATS it's a no-go. We want to make sure that we're already putting our resumes in an ATS-friendly formatting that looks more like this. And if you're a federal worker or federal contractor with a resume, you're probably familiar with this because this is the way a lot of you already do your resumes. So I'm just emphasizing the clear sections, the bullet points, the relevant keywords, measurable achievements, quantifying what you've done. You know, what he's got here, analyze data from 2,500 monthly active users and used outputs to guide marketing and product strategies, increased app engagement time by 2%, or sorry, twofold by 30% and decreased drop-off rate. Those are the kinds of quantifiable outcomes that are going to catch eyes. I know for me, myself, looking for people to fill roles, I'm looking for numbers, bullet points and numbers. And those numbers, I will contextualize the sentence around them. So again, we want to make sure we have clear section, bullet points, relevant keywords, and wherever applicable, we have outcomes for those keywords. They're going to be highlighted by the system and catch the eye of the recruiter. Some extra tips here. Vocabulary, we want to make sure we're matching the language with industry norms. You know, use job-specific leadership and then job-specific leadership expectations. So a lot of you, again, have years of experience, and maybe now you're looking to be a people leader. So make sure whatever people leading looks like in a particular industry that you're looking at, you're aligning with those norms, you know, whether that be a people-centric leader or a servant leader or, you know, whatever that particular industry is looking for. Make sure that if you have the experience, you're highlighting it and aligning it there. You know, talking about tools and softwares and certifications, role synonyms, spending some time with there. Check your grammar. These natural language processors are sticklers for grammar. So if you want to be a people leader, yes, AI can review your emails. Yes, it can review your, you know, presentations, and it can do all of that. But at the end of the day, if you're going to lead people, there's an expectation you're going to be able to go into a room and command it and speak to it and capture people's attentions and relay to them information that they need to capture. And a lot of that is insinuated to folks by the grammar that's used and what you're putting in front of them, because they're going to assume you're going to put that same quality of work in front of stakeholders or potentially in front of customers. So it's something we definitely want to highlight and spend some time with, and something we talked about already, using those simple fonts, Times New Roman, Arial, Calibri, in sizes 10 to 12. Now, those are just tips for the overall resume and just kind of review where we're at right now. We've talked about the way ATS works. It's an organizer. It's a scorer. It creates profiles. It tells a story about the resume that it's got and compares it to the story of people already there. We talked about, you know, how the ATS strips a resume down to its bare bones and presents that to the presenter with a uniform font, uniform sizing, uniform color, so we can't hide job descriptions. We've talked about key things that might be good to hand or put on a resume that we're handing to folks at a job fair, infographics, images, columns, but how we want to make sure those things are as simple as possible for the ATS. Now I want to talk about your actual resume and things to address there. Writing strong professional summaries. Keep it to three to four lines. Include your title, experience, strengths, your top credentials, and your leadership style. If you're looking into leadership positions, let folks know how you plan to come into a room, how you plan to lead or you know, command the folks who are in your reporting structure. Examples: program analyst with 10 plus years, who's a people-centric leader, who, you know, XYZ. Those are the kinds of things that you want in your professional summary. One suggestion that I give to people is we all have friends, or we hope we all have friends, right? Our friends probably don't know much about us as a professional. They know about us as a human being, but they don't know much about us as a professional. So that makes them great sounding boards to read these professional summaries to them and say, hey, you know me, you've known me as a person for 5-10 years, but did this summary help you learn anything about me as a professional? And that's something that I think is a great use of time with these professional summaries. Experience section, best practices, action verbs. You want outcomes, show results with numbers and include those keywords. So keywords, action verbs, things that you did, and then quantifying the things that you did with numbers. The system's going to pull that out. It's going to catch the eye of the recruiter. Skill section, you want to divide into technical and core competencies, match it to the job description, using columns if space allows. You know, by using columns, I mean putting it in two sections, focusing on the core competencies, focusing on the technical competencies, making sure the system can readily identify them and organize them and present them. Education and certifications, list the most recent. Include relevant certifications. A lot of you, especially maybe if you've done biotechnology or biological research, you might have a resume that pertains to lab work, but maybe you want to be a leader in pharmaceuticals or pharmaceutical sales. They might not necessarily care about your lab work and your lab credentials. You might want to focus on your leadership or your people leading or your customer service experience. Make sure that your certifications that you may have for either side of the duality of your professional experience is relevant to the particular job that you're doing. I was actually a biochemistry undergrad and biotechnology master. When I was applying for jobs right out of undergrad, I had a lab resume and I had a leadership resume, and I submitted them based on what kind of job I was interested in. I highly suggest people take that same approach if you have specialized knowledge like that. Translations. GS13 budget analyst. What does that mean to a private sector recruiter who's going through your resume? Probably not anything, but senior financial analyst can translate or sends that same message clearly to the recruiter. FOI coordinator, records compliance specialist, personnel security, background check specialist. Again, make these people's jobs easier. Clearly detail what it is that you did and make sure that for those acronyms that you may have, you're explaining them using different synonyms so it's clearly communicated what it is that you are an expert on and used to do. Here's some tools to help. We talked about updating your resume for the job that you want, right? Giving yourself the grace. We've casted the wide net. We've done that. Taking a step back, throttling back a bit, picking 3 to 5 jobs, tailoring our resume, not fabricating a new resume, not fabricating experiences, but tailoring or highlighting particular experiences that we have to the particular job that we want, and particularly to the people we're working with or who are finding success at that organization. Those are the things that these tools are going to help you do. We've got JobScan, Resi, Zeti. All of these are resume builders or helpers. We also have a LinkedIn resume builder. I'm sure some of you have been doing the automatic or one-click apply on resume on LinkedIn. Make sure you have an ATS-friendly resume for LinkedIn to apply to those jobs, because you're uploading your pretty resume that you spent maybe some resources or money on getting. That's right, it may make you feel good about it, but it's not going to be properly translated by the system. And something to think about, you'll get this as a recording and in a follow-up email with the slide deck. But another thing with these resources is a lot of the jobs will allow you to upload multiple documents. So you can upload your ATS friendly where it says resume, but you can also attach your pretty resume. And then when the recruiter gets there and they're going through the attachments, they can say, oh, hey, here's the aesthetic resume that I know that, really captures or tells their story or captures their personality. Here we have bonus LinkedIn optimization. I'm not going to spend too much time here. As you know, Paws and Pivot is a webinar series. The very first webinar in our series was led by Dr. Rowena Winkler of our Career Services Department, and she did a session called Building Your Digital Brand. She speaks specifically to this effect on how to optimize your LinkedIn headlines, career summaries, skills, and customizing LinkedIn URLs. Please, please, please follow the Paws and Pivot URL that you'll get in the email if you don't already have, and watch some of these previous sessions, especially that first one if you want to know a little bit more about optimizing your LinkedIn. Because once you make it through the ATS, if that recruiter's doing their due diligence, they're most likely taking an opportunity to look at your online branding, to look at your LinkedIn, and to see if you're the kind of person they're really looking to fill this role. All right. So optimizing AI-based ATSs. We've talked about it multiple times, using keywords from multiple postings. So if you want to be a project manager, you're looking at job postings from multiple project managers, asking your AI to summarize the keywords or the key components of those job postings. Use jobs or industry-specific vocabulary and tools. Mention frameworks that are relevant to the job, and then mimic top performers who are already in that role. A key strategy that I speak to folks about using here is, while you're already using AI to maybe summarize your resume or give you new iterations of your resume, your recruiter's probably doing the same thing. So when you ask for that summary of 10 project management jobs, don't ask it, hey, ChatGPT, make me a perfect resume for this job. Rather, pretend you are the recruiter and ask ChatGPT, what does the ideal candidate for my job look like? Ask for that profile. When it gives it to you, Align your resume with that profile. Again, we're not making fabrications. We're aligning our actual professional experience with where it's relevant and prioritizing those things. And then you've got a resume that's already kind of built to address any weaknesses that the AI might be telling your recruiter to look for. So that's the way that I would suggest using it. Leveraging the AI as if you were the recruiter themselves, looking for profiles, looking for things that of a successful candidate, and then extrapolating those things from your actual professional experience and making sure they're prioritized. Interview preparedness. Getting past the system is great, but at the end of the day, it's just opening a door. The interview seals the deal. You're still going to have to meet with a human being and speak to a human being. So know your value. And a key component of that is being honest and being truthful. If we are simply using synonyms or highlighting different components of our actual experience, it's very easy to go into a room, command a presence, and speak to those experiences, but when you are stretching the truth, you're making up things that you have not done. When you get grilled on that in an interview, it's not going to go as well. It's not going to go as smoothly. You're not going to be able to speak to that thing as an expert. You're not going to have the same level of efficacy talking about something you didn't do. So we want to make sure that we know our value. We're speaking to the things that we've actually done that make us valuable or would make us valuable in a role. And we want to practice storytelling, narrating our keywords, narrating our experiences. Now, here are just some resources we can use. We've talked about strategy. We've talked about getting past the ATS. Here are just resources that folks can use about job offerings and things around that nature. So again, don't worry about copying any of this down. You'll get it down when this slide deck goes out. And just to summarize what we've talked about so far, really appreciate you all writing it out with us here. Is tailor your resume. Many of you, it's been months. You've applied to hundreds of jobs. We've done that. Throttle back. Target the jobs that you want. Update your resume to reflect those jobs, highlighting your actual experiences. Focus on the hard skills. During the interview, the recruiter will pick up on your soft skills and know that you have them. And avoid just stuffing keywords. Again, remember, if you're just copying and pasting the job description and throwing it at the bottom of your resume, the ATS is stripping it and making sure that everything has the same formatting, font, size, and color. So avoid that keyword stuffing and apply early. Something that I really want folks to take away from this is the ATS creates basically a debrief for the recruiter and sends it out typically when it has anywhere from 100 to 200 applicants. The recruiter is going to go through that first debrief. And if they find 10 people they feel are qualified, are going to be really good fits for their opportunity, the chances that they're going to look at the debrief from day 2 and day 3 and day 4 are slim. So make sure that you are applying early to jobs. Have your resume updated already for the jobs that you're looking for. If this week you're focusing on project management jobs, have your project management job resume, ATS friendly resume ready and update it, and then have your notifications set up on LinkedIn or any of the recruiting or job search sites that you're using, and apply to those jobs as soon as you see them. Tailoring them, leveraging AI, leveraging the tools you have to make sure that you're reflecting that job and what that job needs to see from your experiences. And networking. Networking is important. Whether you're networking with the people who have become a part of our, ad hoc cohort here with Paws Pivot, or it's networking with other people who've been impacted, or it's networking with folks at the federal job fairs that you're attending, use your network. And again, apply early. You want to be part of that first 100 to 200 people so that you're part of that initial debrief that's given. So, opportunities for questions and answers. Feel free to put them in the chat and we'll talk about that. And in the interim, here is our QR code. Please scan it to complete our exit survey. We need these exit surveys. They really help us let us know whether or not the materials or the resources that we're providing are useful for you all. I see that there's one question in the chat. Should we make a new resume? Yes, Patrick. What I'm saying is I do not want you to become a new person for each job that you're applying to. I want you to prioritize the parts of yourself and your professional experience that most align with the job that you're applying for. So does that look like a new iteration or a new ordering to your resume? Yes, it can. But it is not you creating a new person or a new persona every time that you're applying to a job. It's prioritizing the parts of your resume or your experience that are most relevant. Thank you. That was a great question. All right. Well, feel free to email me if there are any other questions. Here's the URL for our exit survey as well. Thank you all so much for your time today. Truly appreciate you all showing up. Hopefully we'll see you next week and for the rest of this month. And thank you for participating in Pause and Pivot.